Good morning, happy people of Paperotech Nation. It is another high five, and it's on September 11th. And you can't say that date without remembering and thinking about where we were 19 years ago. And we'll be talking about that as we start out because we want to remember, but we also want to activate. And we're going to talk quite a bit today about how we can get our merchants activated, get them moving, because none of us make money. The merchants, the partners, Paperotech, any of the companies involved don't make money unless we're using our services. So let's get activated. All this and more on the High Five. Let's go.
The time has come, the questions are set, opinions hide, discussions are led, show about nothing.
Oh, I brought us up and I cut off the intro. That was my fault. But hey, you guys know the music song. And now live up in front of us in the middle, we'll start the man, the myth, the legend. I got to unmute them so they can talk. Mr. Brian Linke, the man who absolutely is looking very sharp in that heather gray, hoodie this morning. Looking
I think
good,
it's
Mr.
Paisley, Nate.
Is it
Paisley?
Oh, well, see, and then that's let me go full screen. Okay, I see. I do see the Paisley. A little bit of Paisley. Yep, there we go. Looking good, man. Looking good.
Fashionable. Thank you.
You are all right. And on the other side, in more of the mountainous region of our country, from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, Mr. Danny Shard. How are you, Danny?
Good morning. Happy Friday. I'm not wearing Paisley, but I got the black. It's slimming.
There we go. There we go. All right, gentlemen, we are going to talk today about we're going to talk a little bit about activations later, but we're going to start with September 11th. And I mean, I don't think any of us will ever forget where we are. We all are from three different, I don't know, generations, but we're in different sectors of our life at that point on September 11th, 2001. And one of us is from New York, and so certainly would have related more. And I don't think Brian and you and I have talked about that. So I just want to talk a little bit, just to start out. Where were we? What are our thoughts as we remember? I had the news on earlier this morning, and I didn't watch all of it, but they were starting the remembrances at Ground Zero there in Lower Manhattan, and they were having ceremonies there in Pennsylvania, and it just brought back a lot of memories. Let's start with you, Brian. What were you experiencing that day? And I'm going to assume it was very different for you. That's your hometown. That's your home.
Right. Well, so the answer to where I was, I had my younger son, actually he's my middle son now, getting ready to take him to preschool before I went to my office. And as we were getting into the car, literally my phone rang, and it was another guy in my office, and he's like, "Are you watching this?" I'm like, "No, watching what?" So I went inside and I turned the TV on, and as soon as I turned the TV on, obviously it was on every single channel, and it was just a perfect day in New York. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was a mid-September, beautiful day, and then that happened, and we just sat there all day long, and I watched it, and teared up the entire time, but. The whole the thing about it is, and I was just telling Danny this before we got on, I back when I had energy and I was a salesman, I cold called every single door in both towers in the World Trade Center. I cold called every single door in the Empire State Building, just because I was just an animal at the time. I mean, that was when I was young and skinnier and younger and with energy, and so yeah, I mean, that was back in the days where you could solicit without really getting in trouble, or at least not being able to talk yourself out of it. And then another World Trade Center story, and this is a funny one, is I was down in the subway at the World Trade Center at 3:00 in the morning with my wife and my brother. And we were getting on the train, waiting for the train, getting on the train. And that was back when you had tokens, and you stuck the token in the turnstile. Now you scan it, and they don't do the token thing anymore. But so instead of putting my token in, I put both of my hands up on the on the thing, and I hurtled over the turnstile. And there was a cop there, happened to be watching me, and gave me a ticket. So there were a lot of things going through my head that day. 19 years ago, and a couple of them were like, what if my life had taken a little bit of a different turn, I could have easily been in there. Um, but yeah, no, I was sitting with my preschooler, who's 23 years old now, and we sat there and we watched it all day long, and it was just. Then I was on the phone with. I can remember I was on the phone with another guy who said, "Yeah, there's more planes in the air," and then the thing hit in Pennsylvania, and then in Washington D.C., and I mean it was just just a terrible day.
It was. And Danny, I mean, you were a bit younger at that time than the others of us. What probably were you middle school age at that point?
I was a senior in high
Senior
school.
in high school. Okay.
He's
I see.
old.
He's old. He's older than I think. Okay, you're a senior in high school, and yep, I was like 2 years out of college, so that's how far I'm. What are you like as a high school student? What was school like that day for you? And kind of in the mid, miles away, 2,000, 2,500 miles away from what's happening. What was it like for you?
It was crazy. I actually said to my wife this morning, it's hard to believe that next year's the 20th anniversary of this, because I mean it literally. I remember that day, kind of like Brian said. I remember that day vividly. The entire, from waking up to throughout the day, at home that night. I mean, kind of glued to the television in our classes, right? They had TVs in every class, and I mean that was pretty much what was going on. I mean, we watched the news. It was hard for even the teachers to get us to focus on work or on schoolwork, because they were just glued to it as well. So my stepdad woke me up, and the first tower had already been hit, because we're 2 hours behind, obviously, and I don't know, it was 7:15, 7:30, something like that, whenever he woke me up. And as soon as I, wipe my eyes and I look and see what's happening, that second plane hit, live on TV, and I'll never forget that. So it was a crazy day, even 2,500 miles away.
Yeah. Well, and I think for myself, I was living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I was taking a coworker that morning. We'd gotten up at like 6 in the morning, and to take him to the Harrisburg airport. And so he and his wife. So I was driving the I think 45 mile or 45-minute drive, and I dropped them off at the airport. And I'm coming back, and I had a cell phone at that time. I think I had like a I wasn't even flip phone days. I mean, I think I had an old brick phone at that there, and it was still new to me. And it rang, and it was Bob calling me back, and he said you got to come back and pick me up. And I hadn't been listening to radio. It was early in the morning. I had music playing through my iPod, my original iPod. And I remember, and he said, "Have you not seen the news?" And I was like, "What?" So I turn around, I go pick him up, and I flip onto a news radio station. And then, like the rest of the day was just crazy because in that area, in the northeast area in Lancaster, we had people that traveled. I always thought this was crazy, and would commute on train and over from Philly up to New York every day for their job. And there were people, there were several, all the schools shut down for 2 days, and everybody was just like it was a surreal time as we lived in fear. And what I want to remember is, I mean, now we're 19 years, we're going to be 20 years removed. That I also remember that incredible feeling that next day. And I don't know if you guys had a feeling like this, but I remember I lived in downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in an 1890s row house. I loved it. And walking the streets, and there's just this eerie unity that was out there. Like all the churches were open in that Monday evening. Everybody was doing like open vigils, and everybody was just like, there was this unity over that next several days as we all had a common purpose and a common really enemy. But we were like, look, this can't happen again, and we can't forget what happened to these people. And during that time, that was my memory of those next couple of days. What do you guys remember a little bit, and then we'll move on.
I remember being at a high school football game that night, and they passed out candles to every single one of the people watching the game. And my kids were too young at the time. I think my oldest was in the sixth, seventh, eighth grade, something like that. And but we were at the high school game, and they passed out candles, and everybody was holding a lighted candle at the game in memory.
Yeah, I mean, those were just amazing times, and I think of that. I mean, that so, and I want that feeling back of it, that unity, and we've had some of that in the last couple months. I was reading a report, and think about it, what a contentious time this world has been in with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter and everything that's been going on. I read a report the other day that 93% of the over 9,000 protests have been completely nonviolent, no violence of any type, and less than 1/2 of 1% where we had any like physical violence where it caused bodily harm or anyone, and only I think one did someone, a few people did someone perish. But that unity that comes splashing around when we take a common interest and a common goal and we get something done, man, I hope that returns for us, because that is something that I love seeing. Love watching when you get a team together, and that's really what we're always trying to build here at Papertech, a team that has a common purpose, a common goal, and we see it and we're working together to go for it. And this is a terrible transition because I don't always know how to make transitions out of something more serious. So I'm just going to go for it. Today we're going to talk about how do we get merchants activated. And Danny, I was going to ask you this question to start out. Can you define activation? And I'm pretty sure, to my knowledge, most companies in our business define activation pretty close to the same way. But within Papertech, how do we define an activated merchant? What is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, an activated merchant is a merchant that's processed at least $300. I mean, let's be honest, it's all about just getting them to use our systems, right? If they start swiping, they're activated. However, volume thresholds kind of trigger that what we consider is an active merchant, right? So active is merchants that have processed over 300. That means they're using the system and they're using the service entirely.
Well, and I love that this shows how long Danny's been in this business. He's still using that word swipe. What's that thing called, Danny? What do you do? How do you swipe a card? It's chip, dip. But Brian, you set up a lot of merchants. How do you focus on making sure, depending on what, and it's different. So let's start with just someone who's getting a basic Pay Anywhere smart terminal, a basic terminal that's plug and play. They turn it on and they're ready. All they have to do is plug it into it, get it connected to the internet and turn the power on. How do you make sure they're ready to start getting going and they're just using a terminal to make sure that they're going to start using it? Because they're usually switching from another service. And so you got to get them to make that jump. How do you prepare them?
Well, the thing is again at Papertech, and this is something that I think sets us apart. We've talked about it before. We have the support that we have here between our relationship managers and Coach Mike Stetzel and so all of that part of it with my merchants had already been done by our support team. And my job was just to make sure that the equipment got there. They were familiar on how to use it. With payanywhere.com, they can get onto. And, I'll throw out a shout out to Jen Sales. My towing company out in San Diego. She got on the phone with everybody or the two guys there and walked them through how to set up the A920s that they have. And we're off and running. So I lean on, it's been an MO of my entire career that I lean on, my coworkers and my support team. And so yeah, I mean, we don't, we have I have this conversation every day with agents or potential agents that I talk to, and, about the difference between what Papertech does and other companies. And so, activating a merchant, we have support people to do that. They can always call me. They can always call Danny. But normally that stuff is already done before the deal's even done.
Well, I'm going to switch over to Danny and ask you, we have thousands of partners across the U.S., and we watch, one of the things we watch on our dashboards is the activation rate of merchants, and we have a certain amount of merchants that take some time to activate. What causes that? What are some of the hurdles that maybe it takes 1, 3, 5 weeks? And let's stay in the terminal world, because then we'll get to point of sale. That's a different activation process. But what are some of the hurdles that agents and partners can be overcoming in order to get their merchants going? Because let's be honest, that's how we make money, is they start processing dollars and cents on those cards. Hey, you're muted, Danny.
Yeah, when you're talking even just a basic terminal mobile reader type of setup, these are terminals specifically should be pre-programmed, ready to go, a plug and play type of setup. And the biggest hurdle I think that you'll see with merchants that don't get activated, even with those simplified solutions, is they're just not taking the time to do it. And us as partners are not taking the time to follow up with them and make sure, or physically going over there, put your mask on, go in there, unplug the terminal, plug in the new one, they're ready to go. It's kind of shocking to hear that these merchants will be getting all new setups to save money and get new equipment. They'll get that shipment and they'll throw it on the shelf behind them because they're too busy making food or doing what they do, and haven't taken the time to do it. Before you know it, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks goes by, and you're like, dang. And but then as us as partners, it's on us to make sure that they follow through with that.
Well,
Well, let me just. I'll never forget when I started talking to partners, and they had accounts that weren't activated for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and I'm like, in this, you're selling, merchant services is not easy, right? And it's a process, and sometimes it's a lengthy process, right? The days of walking in, with a piece of paper and walking out with a signed agreement on the same day without that person even knowing that you're coming, those days are almost over, right? I mean, I used to be the king of it back in the old days, but walk in, nobody knows you're coming. You walk out, you have a signed order. In this industry, it's not that way. So I never could understand agents that wouldn't activate accounts, because forget the residual, forget all that. It takes a lot of time to sell an account, to sign somebody up. I mean, it's a process, and for an agent not to do it, to not activate their account, I mean, all that time that it took them to sign up that merchant is for naught.
Well, and I think that that what we see with that and some improvements with that is, now we pay things like increased activation bonuses, right? So if a merchant's activating, the partner gets a bigger bonus. So it's, obviously enticing them to make that follow through. As salespeople, we're always focused on the next sale, right? So we make the sale, we close the deal, the account gets approved, deployment ships out the equipment, and we're already moving forward to the next sale. And it's easy to not forget, but almost put in the back of your mind that, oh yeah, I need to get that merchant active and processing, or just follow up with that merchant. I think it's important, though, as salespeople, that we actually create that urgency as part of the closing process, as part of the sales cycle, right? And almost like set a timeline of events for the merchant, right? So here, we've got your application. I'll let you know in the next 24 hours if we need anything. Once it's approved, I'm going to call you. I'm going to make sure you know when you're getting your equipment, and we need to get you up and running. You're not going to see these savings, or better yet, you're not going to eliminate your processing fees until you start plugging in and using this terminal. So it's important to create that sense of urgency, to tell the merchant, hey, you want to save this money. We're doing this as a benefit to your business. Make sure you plug it in right away when you get it. So some things like cash discounts, obviously, in creating that urgency for a merchant to see the savings, setting that timeline during the close of the sale, and actually those expectations are met or set there. I think you're going to see those activation rates increase, especially if you're just making that simple follow-up call or going over there and plugging it in, right? So it's a process, and there's a lot of things we can do to overcome it.
But and again, I don't want to sound like I'm the bad guy here, but to me, the activation part of it is like, that's the easy part, right? The hard part is to sell the merchant,
especially
right?
When you're dealing with a terminal. When you're dealing with a terminal, it is the easy part. You're exactly right.
Right. I mean, the hard part is the selling part. By the time it comes to the activating part, I mean, the merchant already knows that they're switching processors to pay protect. They already know that they're getting the equipment. They already know the rates that they're going to pay. They already know all of it. The activating part is, to me, is the easy part. The other thing is, I mean, we're not going to pay you if you don't activate the account.
Right.
Okay, you're not getting the activation bonus. You're not getting a true up bonus. You're not getting a residual. I mean, to me, it's like I had a hard time understanding it. I really did. I remember when I first started doing this, I'm like, what? And I think one of the things that we've done, and I know I'm probably stealing Danny's thunder here, but we used to pay an approval bonus, and we went away from that. And I think it's a good thing because again, it was getting a lot of our agents in trouble because we would pay the approval, the account wouldn't get activated, we end up clawing the bonus back. And I think by doing it this way, I think it's a win-win for everybody. Because again, if you don't activate the account, we're not paying you.
Well, and I mean, I think a lot of what like both of you are saying is one, don't be a bonehead and get this actually done. You haven't finished the job by getting them to sign up the application, like with the process we were talking about on Wednesday. You need to actually get this merchant to actually start using the systems and start using the processes. And you also need to set expectations. And you have to really, I would personally, in fact, I do, and any accounts I set up, I actually say to them, this is step one, step two, step three. So if it's a terminal, hey, you're going to receive the terminal. I'm going to call you. I want to be on the phone when you do that first piece, or I'm going to come over to you if I can. It depends how you're doing your sales and if you're, close to them. Obviously, Brian mentioned earlier that he was working with a towing company in San Diego. This is COVID-19. I'm sure he'd love to fly to San Diego, but he can't. So someone has to get on the phone and help them take care of that. But then if you have a point of sale, that's where our POS Pros team does a great job of helping them walk through the whole system. We're going to put the menu in. We're going to put your inventory in. We're going to, you're going to get all your equipment. Someone's going to show up and set it up, or this is how you're going to have to set it up, and maybe the partner is going to go help them. And you set all these expectations. Expectations in the game of sales is one of the most important things we can do. And there's so many of us that don't do that. And man, you're just leaving money on the table. Don't say you're done. Don't feel like you don't have the victory dance at the sale and the signing of the application. Have the victory dance when those first $300 come in, right, guys?
How about this? Slow down, organize yourself, okay, and go make the money that you work so hard. Because again, the activation part is, to me, it's the easy part. It's the end of it. It's like, okay, here we go. We're going to start, I'm going to get paid a bonus. I'm going to get paid a true up. I'm going to get paid a residual. That to me is the easy. The hard part is the selling part.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's slow down, organize yourself. Who didn't you get activated? Gives you another reason to go over and see your customer. See your merchant, have a conversation with them, sell yourself over and over and over again so you can keep these merchants for a long period of time and, make as much money as you can.
Yeah. I mean, and as salespeople, we tend to put so much focus as we should on the close and the art of the close and the pitch, right? And how we're going to actually earn that merchant's business, right? That's a huge part of it, but everything is reliant on that activation, everything. And Nate, you brought up point of sale, right? So the POS Pros team, obviously helping partners do those consultations, identify the right systems, do solution fitting, that we always talk about, and then work with each vendor to schedule trainings, to schedule install, like you said, Nate, the menus and inventory inputs and all of that, customizing the system to exactly the way the merchant needs it. And I think it's important as partners that we really kind of stay, more or less in the shadows, but involved, right? Like let these teams do what they do best. But there's some moving pieces to that, right? So getting it scheduled with the merchant and a time that works for them to do the trainings, to train with their staff, to make sure that they're providing all of the information that the point of sale vendor needs to actually do what they need to do, and really just kind of facilitating and more or less just making sure what's happening from both ends is happening, but also knowing when to kind of step back and let these teams take care of it, because that's what they do. And I think a lot of partners that have been working with us, whether it's for a week, a month, or 10 years, are really kind of getting a better handle on that as POS becomes more and more popular, and how your involvement can help, but also how you have to let these teams really do what they need to do. But in regards to activation, Brian's right. It's the easy part. It can be difficult, right, depending on the system. And I don't say difficult, but more moving pieces to it than a terminal. But it is the number one thing, the most important thing on the list of things to do. It's the only way we're earning revenue, right? So we can go out, we can sell, we can do all these things. But if that piece doesn't happen, everything else is irrelevant.
You're not getting paid.
We're not getting paid. And I think
I like getting paid.
as salespeople, we have to remember the full sales cycle. And as much as we want to constantly be selling, we've got to remember that that activation piece is the only way we do it. And there's some partners that I've talked to on a regular basis. I'm working with several of them now, especially as more and more close over the phone and providing like a white glove type of service, right? And it includes like setting those expectations through the close of the sale after the application's been completed, and then constant follow with the merchant even after that account's been activated. And it's one of those types of approaches that you can take that can really set you apart from the competition and ensure that you're going to keep these accounts for a long time. If you want to talk to me about white glove service and what you can do to provide that type of thing for your merchants, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice right there. Let's talk about a few of the hurdles that I've thought about and watched do. So one of them is, especially when you start working with merchants that are processing and maybe a little bit more, a little more complicated of businesses, and they have a lot of bookkeepers involved. They a lot of times like to make those changes at the end of a month or end of a quarter. They want to make it a clean change. So they don't have to go looking to two different places to do the reconciliations. Are there ways to help and make sure those things go smoothly when you're working with businesses that may have bookkeepers and accounting involved, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, so we provide a lot of reporting on the back end. Now, it's important also to set those expectations with the merchants and anybody that might be doing daily or monthly reconciliation with their processing is they have to understand that they're going to have some new processes, right? They're going to have some things that they have to update. It's not going to be exactly the same that they've currently have, right? And depending on how long they've been with that company or the system that they're using, migrating to a different system and a different processor, there's going to be some tweaks to your current reconciliation process. Hopefully it's easier. That's ideal. But in the majority of cases, I think we'll find, especially whenever there's accountants or there's third parties involved that are doing these reconciliations on a regular basis, they're going to see it as a little bit of a headache because even though it may be easier, they already know that process, right? They've already made it a part of their daily routine, and to them it's easy. However, I think if we can point out some specific things in our reporting or that the point of sale system can do for them to make their jobs easier, that transition is going to be a lot more seamless for them, and they'll be able to get through it quicker. So that's a really good thing to talk to merchants about as well, Nate, is the reporting, how they reconcile and how they choose to do that on a daily basis and what we have available for them to make it easy.
Change can be uncomfortable, right? I mean, so when you're so used to something, I mean, again, I'm the old guy, and so when something changes, especially with my obsessive compulsive behavior, it rattles me a little bit, but again, it's only going to be better for the merchant, and you just have to set the expectation. And again, to me, it's just another way of gaining that stickiness with your merchant. Just to get in there and talk to them and have a conversation and tell them, yeah, it's going to be different. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's going to be different, but it's going to be better once you get comfortable with it.
And then, guys, one of the things, the activation is one piece of getting them to actually do that process. You're going to see that batch go through, but then making sure that deposit goes on. So one of the things I've done with merchants that I've set up is if they're set up on next day funding, soon we'll have same day funding rolled out, but making sure that that bank transaction happens, because 99.9% of the time we have no issues and they see that money in their account and life is good. Sometimes there may have been a weird issue, usually way down the stream on things that we don't touch. Someone miskeyed something or something like that, and we want to make sure it's right. How important is it to make sure, and what a great sales point, to make sure our merchants know the money hit their bank account? I like making that a celebration moment. How do you guys make sure that they're actually getting the money into their bank accounts?
I don't know. Call your merchant and
it's simple. Don't make it too difficult. Just call and make sure they got money in their account.
Well, again, I don't mean it like that. Yeah. I mean it like, okay, it's just another follow-up call. Like, hey, just calling you to make sure that everything's going well, and you check your bank account this morning, and yeah, Brian, okay, yeah, everything's going, blah, 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 like it's supposed to go, and again, it's just another way to gain that stickiness with your merchant. And the other thing that PayProTech does is, every single merchant that calls into customer service or technical support, the agent and the merchant get an email. Just happened to me the other day with one of my auto guys over here. They had problem batching their terminal out the night before, and they called in the customer service, got it taken care of within literally 2 minutes, and but I got the email, right? So I was out to lunch, but the email comes across my phone. I call the guy just to make sure, and I already knew that it was taken care of. But I called the guy, hey, Dan, make sure, I just want to make sure that, yeah, Brian, I appreciate that, and, hey, I'm just looking out for you. So anytime you call, just know that I'm getting the message as well. And, again, it's just another way of keeping your merchants happy and keeping them for a long time.
Absolutely. And that's the business we're in. And that's what sales and all the work that we put in, get them activated, get that money put into their accounts, and make sure it's as seamless, and you set those expectations. Before we close out and go to our closing words for the week on September 11th here in the great year of 2020. Okay, is it a great year? I'm trying to be positive about it. But gentlemen, any last words on activations, on anything you would encourage our partners to do to help get those activations, or a question I didn't ask that was important to activations?
I just think that, if you want to get paid, activate the accounts. You want to try to make it, fancy, but that's the bottom line. Is that you want to get the activation bonus, you want to get a true up bonus, especially during this cash discounting. I mean, for goodness sakes, if you're not activating the accounts, you're just leaving money on the table, and it takes the sales process is, and as everybody who's listening knows, it's a tough one. It's long, it's hard, it can be tedious at times. You go back to your merchant, and they're busy and they don't have time for it. There's a whole bunch of different things. So get the accounts activated so we can all start making some money.
All right, Danny, any last words, or we're going to get going on closing out the day? Get some music here going. Next week, next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about how to maximize your residual. The goal of this whole job is to make sure that you're making the most money you can monthly for the rest of your life, as Brian would say. That's the goal. That's the sales pitch, and that can happen. How do you maximize? We're going to be talking about that with our wonderful heroes, Brian and Danny, but our sales heroes, that is. Not the superhero type, though. Brian may wear a cape. But Mr. Danny, Mr. Brian, what do we say as we go into this second weekend of September? We're past Labor Day. Fall is starting in. The chill is in the air. If you're in the South, maybe you're finally not sweating your freaking bleep off. Life is coming back. Hopefully, we're seeing, some movement, things. We're trying to figure things out. The NFL launched last night. How do we challenge our partners? Danny, what do you say first?
Yeah, no, it's been a great week. And, on the activation side, think outside the box. There's a lot of different things that you can do. Reach out to me. Let's talk about it. I've got a lot of partners that we work with on a regular basis that we help them implement processes to increase activations and make more money. So call us and let's talk about it. And we're already off to a great September. Remember today, and go out there and make a sale. Celebrate if you can.
Absolutely. And Brian, how about you, sir?
Again, I just think that no one will ever forget 9/11. No one will ever forget 9/11. So just make sure that you think about it. You think about those people that that went through that, and you owe that to them. And on a lighter note. Tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern, let's tune in to watch the mighty Florida State Seminoles take on the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech.
Oh, college football!
Right now, I got goosebumps right now even thinking about it.
Well, that is what we're all about. I'm wearing my Michigan because we're not playing, and I'm a little bummed about that. But
unbelievable.
Oh man, it's a world that we live in right now. Everything is fragmented. We can't even get a bunch of super conferences to agree what the right way is, and the NCAA is useless. All right, moving on. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of the High Five. We will be back next Wednesday and Friday. If you can watch these on demand anytime on Facebook, on YouTube, and you will be seeing them in your emails at times, and we would love it if you would leave us feedback. Join us live. You can leave comments on these current things. You can email us at partners@papertech.com. You can email Danny at papertech.com, Brian Linky at blinky@papertech.com, me at nate@papertech.com, and we would love to talk to you. All this, and thank you for being part of the High Five. We're going to see you guys this coming Wednesday. That's what we're talking, maximizing your portfolio. Who else doesn't want to talk about that? Because let's doggone it. We want to sit on a beach in a few years watching the money just pour in and taking life in the way we want to see it. Everybody, we say high five to everyone, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We're proud, we're thankful, and we remember because, well, we will never forget, as Brian said. Have a great one. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday.